My name is Stephen Costa, and today we'll be learning how to simplify square roots. I will start off by defining the lesson, giving steps on the lesson, providing examples for the lesson, and finally displaying a worksheet along with the answer sheet so you can test your skills and what you have learned from watching this video. Definition. To simplify a square root, we write it such as there are no perfect squares in the radicand. There are several properties of square roots that allow us to simplify complicated radical expressions. The first rule we will look at is the product rule for simplifying square roots, which allows us to separate the square root of a product of two numbers into the product of two separate rational expressions. We can also use the product rule to express the product of multiple radical expressions as a single radical expression. We will continue the lesson with the following steps on how to simplify square roots. Please follow along and take note. Step 1. Find the largest perfect square that is a factor of the number. In this case, it is the square root of 12. Step 2. Write the factor pair under the square root. That would be the square root of 4 times 3. Separate into two square roots. That would be the square root of 4 times the square root of 3. For step 4, we choose the perfect square because we know it's the square root of an integer. The perfect square would be 2, and we would times that by the square root of 3. Step 5, we simply multiply it, and that would be 2 square root of 3. Now that we went over the steps on how to solve, I will begin to demonstrate some examples on how to solve a few problems. Please follow along and take note. There are two different ways of how to solve. First way is to find the perfect square. The square root of 48 is equal to the square root of 16 times the square root of 3. You can simplify that to be the 4 being the perfect square times the square root of 3, and then you simply multiply it, and that is 4 square root of 3. Second way we can solve is by finding the prime factors. Now this way is a little extra steps, but still get you there. Square root of 48 would be the square root of 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 3. You'd simplify that to the square root of 2 times 2 times square root of 2 times 2 times square root of 3. Simplify that to 2 times 2 times the square root of 3. That would be 4 times the square root of 3, and then 4 times the square root of 3. For example 1, we'll take the square root of 75, and that could be evened out to 25 times 3, but since 5 is the perfect square, it would be 5 squared times 3, and then it would be the square root of 5 squared times the square root of 3, then 5 times the square root of 3. Example number 2. The square root of 180 can be factored out to the square root of 2 times 2, or 4, times 45. We can simplify that down to 2 times the square root of 45. Simplify that to 2 times 9 times 5, which would be 9 times, would be the perfect square would be 3, so it would be 3 times 3 times 5. Factor that out, it would be 2 times 3 times the square root of 5. That would be 6 square root of 5. Square root of 72 is equal to the square root of 9 times 8 equals the square root of 9 times 4 times 2, simplified to the square root of 9 times the square root of 4 times the square root of 2, and that is equal to the square root, or square root of 2 times 2 times 3, and that can be equal to 6 square root of 2. Now that we have went over the examples, hopefully you have all taken note and comprehended the lesson thoroughly. I will display a worksheet for you all to test what you have learned throughout this video. Here is the worksheet. Please pause the screen while the worksheet is displayed if you choose to do it. Here, and I will fast forward to the answers. Compare the answers to the worksheet so you can check your work and see how much you have truly learned. Please pause if you'd like to check them. That's all I have for today. Thank you for tuning in and learning how to simplify square roots. I hope it benefited you. Have a nice day and a splendid summer.